The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcasting Network is brought to you by Calcium. Make real money predicting sports. Calcium is available in every state. Also get $20 for free when you sign up with the code SGPN. That's Calcium promo code SGPN. And welcome everyone to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcasting Network. Currently Wednesday night, February 25th, around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso, always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the quarterfinal matches in Dubai, taking place on Thursday morning. Before getting to those matches, though, a reminder to support the show by subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, you can also find the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So a couple ways to support the show. Subscribe on YouTube, and also leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple if you want to listen to it audio only. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store, Library Tennis Game Podcast merch that we have on the SGPN merch store. We have shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, hats, a lot of options, different colors. Think you'll like the options that we have there. So check out the merch store as well if you want to get yourself some tennis gambling podcast merch. Plus, a reminder, check out the SGPN app, free to download in the App Store. All of the picks and podcasts from every show in one easy location. Check out the SGPN app, free to download once again in the App Store. So moving on into the recap of what happened for the lock and dog for the last episode. Ended up splitting. We probably should have hit the dog as well, but it is what it is. For the lock, had a nice win, nice and easy with Medvedev's straight sets against Shang, as that was minus 121. Never in doubt, Medvedev killed him. It was really never close. Match was over very, very quickly, and you eventually saw Medvedev coast for the second straight time against Shang in about the span of a week. So really never in doubt, nice and easy. Was a carbon copy of the first match that we saw in Doha, and Medvedev steamrolled him once again. So nice, easy win there. Now for the dog, this was a heartbreaker. We ended up having the over 2.5 sets in the Kovacevic and Walton match at plus 130, and Kovacevic won 7-6, 7-6. I believe that's the third time in the last 3 weeks or so where we've lost a team total over or a set over with two tie breaks. So we were right there. Walton had 2 set points at 15-40 in the 5-6 return game, and he did not convert. So pretty annoying there. Lost a dog on 2 tie breaks, so really annoying. Is what it is, though. We picked a close match. It was, if you had the over in games, a nice win, but we had sets, and we lost by the bare minimum. So there we go. Picked up a split for the show. Look for a sweep here for the quarterfinals. So moving on into the recap of what happened on Wednesday in all of the events. So I know that Acapulco is still going on right now. A couple of matches still yet to be played. But moving on into Santiago, we had one straightforward match in the morning, or the early afternoon, which was Hanfman beating Carabelli in straight sets. Then we had anarchy. We had Pellegrino, who ended up beating Comasagna. He served for the match in the second set. He choked it. Comasagna won the breaker, and then eventually Pellegrino, props to him for mentally recovering from the collapse, and he got the job done in the third set, 6-3. Nice job by him. Then we had another competitive matchup between Prismic and Galbis as they alternated 7-5s in the first 2 sets. Then Galbis did win 6-3 in the third set for a nice upset win. Then we had some chaos, which was Darderi and Navone, because neither guy could serve for the entire match, and Darderi eventually found a way to win. But for reference here, Darderi did face 13 break points, and Navone faced 12. So both guys really didn't do a great job of defending serve, as each guy was broken. Darderi was 4 times, and Navone was 5 times. But really just an awful serving display, and Darderi found a way to survive. He got the break at the end to win. So nice job by him to get the job done there. So one of our outrights, minimum, survived today, and we'll see how they do moving forward. But once again, Santiago was a circus today in a good way, and we'll see if that continues moving forward. Now, for the matches in Acapulco, Zverev is currently tied 1 set apiece against Kekmanovic. You're looking at Caboli, who Caboli ended up winning in straight sets, and you saw Otman beat Hoder in the 3 sets, 6-1 though in the third. So not too much drama, but either way, a nice win for him in 3 sets. Moving on to Dubai. We really did not see much drama besides I'd say 2 of the last 3 matches on the card today. So Medvedev beat Wawrinka handily, 6-2, 6-3. Not really a surprise there. Brooksby, though, beat Khachanov. Fun match there, was competitive. Did win 8-6 in the first set tiebreak. Khachanov, though, generated 0 break points against Brooksby. Ouch. Yeah, not very good for Khachanov, but nice win there for Brooksby. Felix keeps rolling, ended up beating Perricard in straight sets. He was actually down a break early in the first set. Then he broke twice in a row, and you eventually saw him coast to a nice 6-4, 6-4 win. Well, Heshka was down a break early in the first set, came back and did win 7-6, 6-4. In fact, he was actually down a break twice and ended up coming back in the 4-5 return game, and then eventually did hold for the breaker, got a break early, and then eventually did end up holding on for the nice straight set win against Busta. Saw an upset, though. Griekspoor did beat Bublik in straight sets. Another tiebreak in there. Griekspoor, as a reminder, did beat Medvedev here a year or two ago, so he has been good, historically speaking, in Dubai, but a nice win for Griekspoor in straight sets. Rublev did win in 3 against Doumbert, lost the breaker in the second set, then eventually did get the break relatively early on in the third set, held on and won, and then broke again for the hell of it in the final game for the win. Mensik beat Popyrin in straight sets pretty handily, 6-3, 6-2. Popyrin won a match. He beat Maicic, so that's a step in the right direction because Maicic has been kind of up and down this season. Popyrin's been a mess for a while, so at least he won a match in the event, but still could not handle Mensik, who got the job done there in straight sets. And then you had the match of the day on hardcourt, which was Rinderknech taking on Draper. As you saw, Rinderknech win the first set 7-5, then Draper won the second set in a breaker, and Rinderknech broke immediately in the third set and held on to win. Draper did not break him a single time in the entire match. You saw Rinderknech serve very well. He won 84% of his first serve points, did only win 42% of his second serve points. But when you land 20 aces along with 0 double faults, you're in good shape, and Rinderknech got the job done there as a dog who ended up winning the match. So overall, decent collection of favorites and dogs winning. You had Brooksby, who was plus 150, Griekspoor was 240, and Rinderknech was 275. So a couple of upsets there. For Santiago, you ended up seeing a couple of upsets as well. Pellegrino was 2-1, Galbis was 220, so a couple of nice wins there. So once again, we've seen a little bit of surprises so far in the event. We'll see if Kikmanovic ends up winning against Zverev. He was a pre-match 4-1. So we'll see how that goes, but Ottman was 2-1, another dog there. So decent day for the dogs on the tennis courts. We'll see if that continues here for Thursday. So before we get into any of the other matches that we have to talk about for the quarters in Dubai, quickly seeing if there's any news that I should talk about. I don't recall any news worth talking. Just check to see if I'm missing something. So just give me a second here. What else is going on? So Andy Roddick is joining ESPN for the coverage of some Grand Slams. So good for him. I follow the podcast a little bit, but I think it is definitely nice to have more tennis representation, just based on the fact that I think tennis, ESPN, I've mentioned many times on this show and on Twitter, I think ESPN does a pretty horrific job when it comes to actually broadcasting tennis. So if you get Roddick in there, who, if you listen to the podcast, does know his stuff, I think it'll help. So that was one piece of news from a journalism perspective. Andy Roddick will now be joining the ESPN coverage, which I'm fine with. Once again, the more the merrier, especially with former players who might add a couple of interesting notes. But I think that Roddick will do a good job with ESPN, but wanted to mention that. Bit of a change there for the broadcast moving forward. Anyway, time to move on into the breakdown of the matches in Dubai for Thursday. Before we get into the matches there, though, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Kalshi. So it's a real money prediction market available in every state. Tons of options for trading on your favorite sports. Besides sports, they also have politics, entertainment, and even the weather. And if you are new to the platform, get $20 for free when you sign up with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, K-A-L-S-H-I. Code SGPN for a free $20 to sign up at Kalshi. We're also brought to you by Rhythms. Rhythms has been on a heater for college and for the NBA. So it's super easy to sign up for. You can also create your own model, use the leaderboard models, or let Rhythms house model give you plays directly. So once again, a couple of ways to experiment with model building in your actual sports betting venture. But if you are new to Rhythm and you want to go premium, use the code SGPN25. We download the app, and you'll get a nice 25% off your first month. That's Rhythm, R-A-T-H-M-M, code SGPN25 for quarter of the first month at Rhythm. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of Wednesday's matches. Time to move on into the breakdown for the quarters in Dubai on Thursday. So before I actually get into that, though, I want to briefly remind everybody once again what we have left for the outrights in Dubai. So mentioning the actual quarter odds, first quarter we took Felix by himself at plus 140, which of course is still alive. Second quarter, Medvedev by himself at plus 140 as well. That is also still alive. Third quarter, we did lose Draper at 333, but we do have Rublev at plus 260, which of course is still alive. Fourth quarter, though, is dead. We had Bublik at 210, and we had Hurkacz at 550. So those both went up in flames. So once again, we can still win 3 out of the 4 quarters with some plus money in there. So definitely nice so far. And for the outright winners, right now we have lost nobody. We had Felix at 5-1. We have Medvedev at 750. And we have Rublev at 12-1. So overall, pretty good. Only lost 1 quarter, and we lost Draper in the third quarter. But still, if our 3 guys end up winning, the quarters were up, so can't really complain. But either way, we still have all 3 outrights to win the event, left with only 8 people to go. So keeping that in mind, if you ended up backing my outrights, you might not need to bet on a couple of matches because you're already invested. But for the sake of the matches in order, starting off with the first match, Medvedev taking on Brooksby. For this one, Medvedev's around minus 420. Brooksby's around plus 310. For the spread, I see minus 4.5 for Medvedev, plus 4.5 for Brooksby. A little bit of juice there on the Brooksby 4.5 side. Over-under is at 21.5. Now, for the head-to-head history, faced off one time before in Miami back in 2022, and Medvedev did win in straight sets. So very dated, was about 4 years ago. Doesn't really mean much, but that's the only meeting we have to go by with a head-to-head. Now, Medvedev, we saw, have a pretty underwhelming loss there to Tsitsipas in Doha. Showed up here in Dubai, which he's been great in historically, and he's been great. Beat Shang and beat Wawrinka. For the record, to go through the actual stats here, Medvedev has only lost a grand total of 9 games in the first 2 matches combined. So he has been rolling. Brooksby, though, like Medvedev, has not dropped a set yet, beat Bergs and beat Khachanov. The shocking part is Brooksby has actually not been broken in the entire event, which is very surprising because he's not really a good server. So he faced 1 break point against Bergs, 0 break points against Khachanov, which is the shocking part. 1 combined break point chance faced in 2 rounds for Brooksby is a borderline miracle. Now, I do think Brooksby is going to struggle to hold serve against Medvedev, who we know is going to return well, like he always does. He's going to stand very far back on the baseline. Brooksby does have, I think, some underrated volleying skills, but Medvedev will bring a unique wrinkle to the returning puzzle, and I do think that's going to give Brooksby problems over the course of this matchup. Now, I do think Brooksby, once again, is still playing well, but it's really tough to go against Medvedev, who's been this good in Dubai for a long time. Former champion. For the actual stats, Medvedev has won 12 of his last 15 matches at this event, so 12-3, and I do think he's going to look sharp once again. If you want to argue that Brooksby can hold serve consistently against Medvedev, then maybe you want the over. I don't. I think Medvedev's going to break him a couple of times, maybe even in each set. I know Medvedev can, in theory, break himself with some double faulting issues, but in a battle of ralliers, which is what this match should be, Medvedev does have more firepower, and he is the much better server. I'm not going to overreact to 2 good serving matches from Brooksby. I do think that Medvedev will be able to break him a couple of times. Not sure I can say the same about Brooksby. I think Medvedev wins in straight sets. I saw that around minus 135, give or take. I think he'll win. I think he's just in a different tier than Brooksby on these courts. I'll go for him there in this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Felix taking on Lehecka. So for this one, Felix is a favorite, not by a lot though, minus 185. Lehecka, though, is around plus 148. For the spread here, I see minus 2.5 for Felix, plus 2.5 for Lehecka, and the over-under is at 23.5. Now, for the head-to-head for them, it's been competitive. So for the history here, they faced off actually in Brussels last year. Lehecka lost in 3 to Felix. Before that, though, Lehecka did some damage, did end up beating him in the Aussie Open in 2023, and then he ended up retiring in the first set in Madrid against Felix. So not really much to go by in that one because it was 3-3 and Lehecka quit. But the point is, it has been competitive in the head-to-head. It's currently 1-1 if you're looking at only the completed matches on hardcourt, so you might see a bit of a war between the 2 of them. Now, Felix, we saw, look great all season, won the title in Montpellier, made the final in Rotterdam, then, of course, did get injured a bit in Rotterdam, hurting his hip, but either way was able to recover for Dubai, beat Zhang, and beat Perricard in straight sets. So he's faced off against two good servers, and he actually has been breaking a decent amount. For Lehecka, though, beat Nardi in 3. Did not look good early on following the loss in the semis in Doha to Fees. He got lucky that Fees dropped out of Dubai because he faced off against Nardi in the first round instead, was in rough shape early on, came back and he won, and then beat Busta in straight sets, but he was down a break twice in the first set. So based on competition, I think we'd agree that Zhang and Perricard is better than Nardi and Busta at this stage in Busta's career, at least. I think Felix is going to win. I think Felix is just more trustworthy. Both players are kind of similar. Solid serves, good forehand, but I do think that Felix's court coverage is better. And I do think based on the form that we've seen lately from these two guys, I think Felix is more reliable. It's not just about giving your A effort in any given match. It's how often you actually give even a B effort and above. Lehecka, when he struggles, it really looks underwhelming. It looks awful. And I know that you ended up seeing Felix struggle against De Minaur, who we know has been great in Rotterdam for 3 straight years. But Felix, I feel like more often than not, he gives you a good performance, at least so far this season. Lehecka's been more up and down. Struggling against Nardi and struggling early on against Busta is not going to suddenly instill confidence for me to actually back Lehecka in this one. I'll go Felix. I gave him out to win the event, so of course I do like him in this event. He made the final last year. I think he'll win. I'll say competitive straight sets. I think that Felix is right now, once again, in better form. And I do think plus 140 for straight sets is a pretty solid number. I'll go for that as my main thought for this one. Moving on into the next match here, going a bit out of order. You're looking at Mensik taking on Greeksport. So for this one, Mensik is around minus 300. Greeksport is around plus 230. For the spread, I see minus 3.5 for Mensik, though, plus money. And I see plus 3.5 for Greeksport around minus 140. For the over-under, I see 22.5 games. Now, Mensik we saw look great in Doha, beating Sinner. Did lose to Fees right after, but he showed up here. I thought he was injured. I thought he might drop out. He did not beat Hurkacz and beat Popperin in straight sets in both matches. For Greeksport, we know he was in really bad form all season. Showed up in Rotterdam, beat Hallis, then lost to Felix. But then he showed up here where he's been pretty good in the past, and he ended up beating Virtanen and he beat Bublik, both in straight sets. So we have 0 career meetings, so no head-to-head history to go by. First glance over. We know Greeksport is really not a great returner. We know he is a good server, and Mensik is also a solid server. We might see a couple of breakers in here. A 7-6, 7-6 hypothetical outcome would not be too shocking. I like the over in this one. I think 22.5 does feel pretty low. Could be a 3-setter. The only concern is if Greeksport loses the first set, will he roll over? We have seen that before, but I'll go with the over. You have 2 solid servers going at it. 2 guys return-wise who are not exactly amazing, especially Greeksport, who I think is really not a great returner at all. I think I'm looking at a spot where I'll go with the over. I see Henry asking if Mensik is the most vulnerable favorite in Dubai for the card on Thursday. I would say probably. I mean, based on odds, it's technically Felix, but I think Felix should beat Lehecka. Greeksport winning wouldn't shock me. I mean, Greeksport has been good here. He beat Medvedev a year or 2 ago. Mensik did play a bunch of tennis in Doha, showed up here. I do think that Greeksport is alive. So based on the pricing, I think 225 is a pretty large number, actually, for Greeksport. I'll go with him there. I think vulnerable is a good word. Not saying that I think Greeksport is guaranteed to win, because we know, of course, he's a head case. But I do think the over is appealing. Whether Greeksport wins or Mensik wins, I do not see it being easy for either guy. Give me the over in this one. Moving on into the last match for the quarters, we do have a matchup between Rublev and Rinderknech. For this one, Rublev minus 305. Rinderknech is around plus 240. For the over-under, I see 22.5 games at around minus 115 apiece. For the over and under, for the spread, I see Rublev minus 3.5 at minus 130. Rinderknech plus 3.5 at around minus 115. Not every book has a lines yet for this match, so once again, you might be able to find better pricing moving forward, but I see DraftKings right now has lines, so I'll use that for the sake of convenience. So for the path so far, for these 2 guys, Rublev has been quite good here in the past. Former champion, made the finals a couple of times. Beat Humbert in 3, beat Royer in straight sets. For Rinderknech, though, he's had a couple of close battles against good competition, but he was able to serve his way out of it, beat Morozin in 3 and beat Draper in 3. Now, for the actual head-to-head history, it's been very competitive. They have 3 career meetings, all in hardcore, 2 meetings in the U.S. Open. Rublev won both of those, but none of those matches were decided in straight sets. So Rinderknech did do some damage in that one, in those 2 matches, I mean. In fact, in the U.S. Open in 2024, Rinderknech actually led 2-0. And then the heat got to him. He really struggled physically, and Rublev destroyed him in the last 3 sets. But the point is, we saw Rinderknech give Rublev run for his money in all 3 meetings. The one non-Grand Slam meeting was in D.C. back in 2024. Rublev did win, but that match did land 23, which did go over this number. Now, Rinderknech and Rublev have both been serving very well so far in the event. Rublev, for reference, has been winning 85% of his first serve points. Rinderknech is not far behind. He's at 81.5%. I know Draper is off injury. He's still a good returner and rallier, and Draper broke him 0 times in 3 sets. So I do think that both guys should serve well in this matchup. The head-to-head does suggest that Rinderknech and Rublev should have themselves a very long and competitive matchup, which I agree with. I'll put it this way. I think Rublev should win, but I think minus 300 is a very large number. If Rinderknech serves as well as he did against Draper, he can win. Now, the problem he's going to run into is that for whatever reason, despite having a great serve, he's a pretty horrific tiebreak guy, and it's been proven over the years, and his overall tiebreak record is horrendous. So Rublev might end up beating him in a breaker, and at that point, you're hoping that Rinderknech ends up serving first in the second set. But either way, I like the over in this one. We saw Rublev drop a set to Humbert, so he's not exactly been dominant. He's been good overall, but I think you're going to see a bunch of holds here. Rublev not really known for his great return skills. Neither is Rinderknech. So I see a bunch of holds in this match, kind of like the Draper match, where even without the third set, you had 25 games. I can see it being a very competitive matchup through and through. I'll go with the over. I think Rublev should win, but once again, the price is very expensive. So I think the value is only on Rinderknech plus the games. But I'll go with the over, 22.5 for this one. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the 4 matches in Dubai for the quarters. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. They've been covered with pick'em entries for almost every single sport. Plus, they just recently increased the payout for the entries. The entries now pay for 2 picks, 3.5x, and 3 pick entries now pay out 6.5x. But a reminder, if you are new to Underdog, capitalize on the new offer for new customers. Play just $5, $75 bonus funds. Sign up the promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is the #1 sports prediction market in America. So check out the reduced juice. A lot of great prices you'll find on props, on games, etc. Download the Novig app, and when you actually do so, you'll get a nice sign-up deal. Spend $5 to get $50 when you sign up with the code SGPN. Once again, get on the action with Novig. Promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the round of 16 and the preview of the quarterfinals. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. So for the lock in this one, I am going to go with the last match I talked about. I am going to go with the over 22.5 in the Rinderknech and Rublev match at minus 115. So for reference, both guys have been no strangers to long sets recently, as there has been a 7-5 or a 7-6 set in 9 of Rinderknech's last 10 matches, and Rublev has seen a 7-5 or a 7-6 in 3 of his last 4. So both guys tend to find themselves in very long sets. There's a chance you get there without even needing a third set. Rublev has been winning 85% of his first serve points. Rinderknech has been winning 81.5% of his first serve points. Both guys not really great at returning. We saw Rinderknech use the serve and volley game against Draper. I think he can do something similar against Rublev in this one as well. But I said before, the head-to-head has been very close. All 3 meetings in the head-to-head have gone over this number, and the 2 Grand Slam meetings did not end in straight sets. So I've seen Rinderknech, despite not having the wins against Rublev, he's been competitive. And I do think that with his improved skill set that we've seen over the last year or so, of course, making the 1,000 final that we saw last year, I think he can make this very competitive with Rublev. So I'm going to go with the over in this one. Give me the over 22.5 as my lock for the show. For the dog, I'm going to go to another total, an all total. This one is going to be the first match, actually, between Brooksby and Medvedev. Give me the under 20.5 games at plus 105, all the down from the 21.5. So Medvedev has a great record in Dubai, 12-3 in his last 15 straight up here. 9 of the 12 meetings, or 9 of the 12 matches, with those wins, had less than 21 games. So when Medvedev has been winning here in the past, he tends to roll. We've seen that in the first 2 matches here. He's only lost 9 games in the first 2 matches combined. So once again, he's been returning well. He's been serving well. And I think he should look sharp here against Brooksby, who does lack firepower. I think that's a pretty safe way to describe Brooksby's skill set. But once again, 12-3 in the last 15 here, and 9 of the 12 wins had a total below 21. I think he's going to win pretty comfortably. I understand Brooksby, if he keeps serving this well, will make it competitive. But I will dare Brooksby to serve well against an elite returner. I think Brooksby will be forced into some uncomfortable situations in long rallies against Medvedev in his service games. I think Medvedev's going to win. I think he'll win comfortably. I'll go with the under 20.5 at plus 105. So once again, the lock and dog picks for the show. The lock's going to be on the Rinderknech and Rublev match over 22.5 games at minus 115. For the dog, give me Brooksby and Medvedev all to under 20.5 at plus 105. Anyway, let's wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the semis in Dubai for tomorrow. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of